Why $300,000 net worth feels like nothing today. Part 1. The Six-Figure Mirage. Imagine a stickman named Joe. It is a Saturday morning in the year 2026, and Joe is looking at his net worth tracker with a mixture of pride and profound confusion. He has finally hit the milestone, $300,000. In his father's generation, $300,000 was a destination. It was the amount that signaled you had made it to the upper middle class. It was enough to buy a house outright in most American suburbs and still have a significant buffer for retirement. But as Joe performs a forensic audit of his actual life, he realizes that while his nominal number has grown, his sovereign purchasing power feels smaller than ever. Joe is a victim of the nominal anchor trap. He is anchored to an old success script that hasn't been updated for the realities of the 2026 economy. Our audit reveals that in today's landscape, $300,000 is no longer a fortress. It is merely the survival floor for a middle-class family. The headlines scream about the "Sell America" trend and geopolitical noise, but Joe's real enemy is the invisible eraser of currency devaluation. According to our macro financial reports, currency devaluation quietly steals approximately 3% of Joe's wealth every single year. When you add the fiscal drag from frozen tax thresholds and the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, OBBBA, phase-outs, Joe's $300,000 is being harvested in real time. Joe looks at the housing market. In major cities, housing now costs 15 times the average household income. His $300,000 fortune wouldn't even cover a 20% down payment on a decent family home in a Tier 1 city without leaving him completely illiquid. Today, we are performing a surgery on the middle-class milestone. We are going to look at why $300,000 has been downgraded from wealth to maintenance, how the poverty premium still bites you even at this level, and why your smart order of operations must now account for a world where 6 figures is the new zero. Part 2. The mathematics of the survival floor. Joe looks at his $300,000 and tries to understand why he still feels financially fragile. Our forensic audit of the 2026 economy reveals the answer. The cost of the middle-class anchor has been re-indexed. In previous decades, a stickman with this amount of capital was considered rich. But in the year 2026, we have entered what economists call a K-shaped economy, where wealth concentrates in the hands of a few, while the cost of basic survival for everyone else is systematically harvested. The first invisible eraser Joe faces is currency devaluation. According to our macro financial reports, devaluation is quietly stealing approximately 3% of Joe's purchasing power every single year. On a portfolio of $300,000, this means Joe is losing $9,000 annually just for standing still. He is running up a down escalator that is accelerating. Next, we audit the 1,000 small bites that we explored in our poverty premium surgery. Joe might think that because he has $300,000, he is immune to these costs. He is wrong. In the year 2026, the poverty premium, the extra cost of essential goods, has risen to an average of £380, or approximately $480. The most aggressive bite is the food trap. Our data shows that the food premium has surged from £84 to £261. Even for a stickman with Joe's net worth, the rising cost of high-quality, sustainable nutrition acts as a carry cost that erodes his monthly surplus. Furthermore, Joe is hit by the reemergence of the switching gap. Because the energy market is volatile and driven by geopolitical noise, cheaper fixed-rate tariffs appear and disappear within hours. Because Joe is a high-engagement resource, working a demanding job to maintain his $178,000 salary, he lacks the cognitive bandwidth to constantly hunt for these deals. He misses out on an average energy saving of £171, simply because the system builds friction into his savings process. When Joe adds up the $9,000 lost to devaluation, the fiscal drag from frozen tax thresholds, and the complexity tax of managing a modern life, he realizes that his $300,000 isn't a fortune. It is a maintenance fund for a system designed to keep him in place. Part 3. The Housing Multiplier and the OBBBA Harvesting Zone. The true reason Joe's net worth feels like nothing becomes clear when he looks at the architecture of shelter. In the year 2026, we are performing a surgery on the housing multiplier. In major global hubs, housing now costs 15 times the average household income. If Joe wants to buy a forever home, which we have previously audited as a wealth prison, he discovers that a decent family home in a stable neighborhood now costs over $1 million. Joe's $300,000 would cover a 20% down payment and closing costs, but it would leave him with almost zero liquidity. He would move from having a milestone to having a physical anchor that makes him vulnerable to the big freeze in the labor market. Without his liquid buffer, Joe is just one algorithmic demotion away from total financial collapse. But the most dangerous part of Joe's $300,000 status is that he has entered the OBBBA harvesting zone. Our audit of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act reveals that the system is designed to harvest the success tax from stickmen who have managed to save significant capital. Because Joe's net worth is often tied to a high income, his modified adjusted gross income, MAGI, likely puts him right at the $75,000 line for single filers, or the $150,000 line for joint filers. The moment Joe's income or capital gains cross these thresholds, his benefits begin to vanish. The senior bonus deduction, if he is over 65, phases out at a rate of 6% per dollar. His SALT deduction, which was temporarily raised to $40,000, begins a rapid 30% phase down. His child and dependent care credit collapses from 50% down to 20%. Joe is trapped in a tax squeeze. He has too much money to qualify for the standard protections provided to the lower class, but he has too little money to access the sovereign shielding used by the top 1%. He is in the harvestable middle, where every nominal increase in his net worth is met with an equal or greater increase in his systemic carry cost. In the next part, we are going to look at the success trap of the $300,000 milestone. We will analyze the RMD tax trap that waits for Joe in the future, why his parents' advice to just keep saving is keeping him poor, and the exact positioning protocol Joe must use to turn this mirage into a real fortress. Part 4. The Success Trap and the RMD Wall. Joe is a good student of finance. He has worked hard, reached the $300,000 milestone, and followed the smart order of operations meticulously. But as Joe analyzes his portfolio through our forensic lens, he discovers that he has accidentally walked into the success trap. The problem is architectural allocation. Our audit of retail investment behavior, specifically on forums like r/Bogleheads and r/The Money Guy, reveals that a massive percentage of the middle class has their wealth frozen in qualified retirement accounts. If Joe has $250,000 of his net worth in a traditional 401k, he doesn't actually have $250,000. He has a joint venture with the IRS, where the government owns an undisclosed percentage of his future. This is the RMD tax trap. In the year 2026, under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, OBBBA, the rules for future distributions are tightening. The system encourages Joe to defer his taxes today, but it is setting him up for a tax collapse when he reaches age 73 or 75. At that point, the government will force Joe to take required minimum distributions, potentially pushing him into the 32 or 35% marginal brackets during a time when his modified adjusted gross income, MAGI, will also trigger the phase-out of his senior bonus deductions. Joe is realizing that being a good saver in a traditional account is a bet that tax rates will be lower in the future, a bet that seems increasingly risky given the war drag and the deficit monetization required to finance the global military buildup of 2026. Furthermore, Joe is struggling with the psychological reality of lifestyle inflation. We audited the comments of users like Certain Contact 6340, who described the intense difficulty of transitioning from a save, save, save mentality to managing a high-burn life after reaching a significant milestone. At $300,000, the system tempts Joe to upgrade his existence. He feels he has earned the new car or the larger forever home, But as our audit of the housing multiplier showed, these upgrades are often wealth prisons that consume Joe's liquidity. If Joe uses his capital to fund a more expensive lifestyle, he isn't getting richer. He is simply increasing his systemic carry cost, making him even more dependent on his $178,000 salary. To escape this trap, Joe must look past the nominal numbers and focus on architectural optionality. He needs to stop counting his paper wealth and start measuring his exit velocity. Part 5. The Forensic Verdict and the Path to True Sovereignty. The verdict of our forensic audit is clear. In the year 2026, a $300,000 net worth is the new zero for the middle class, because it represents the minimum capital required to offset the divergent forces of the modern economy. It is no longer a luxury. It is the maintenance fee for a life that isn't being harvested by the system. To turn this mirage into a fortress, Joe must implement the final stage of the positioning protocol. Step 1. Prioritizing the bridge account. Joe realizes that he cannot wait until age 59.5 to access his capital. He must aggressively fund a bridge account, a taxable brokerage account that acts as his exit velocity fund. By hitting the 25% hyperaccumulation rule from the Money Guy scripts, Joe ensures that he has liquid capital that is not subject to probate delay or age-based government locks. Step 2. Defending with global market weights. To protect his $300,000 from the Sell America trend and the USD tanking noise, Joe shifts his portfolio to global market weights. He moves from a U.S.-centric allocation toward a diversified split of roughly 63% U.S. and 37% international equities, using funds like VXUS. This ensures that if the Greenland Gambit or new tariffs trigger a domestic downturn, Joe's wealth is anchored in the collective productive capacity of the entire world. Step 3. The Sovereignty Anchor, 0.1 Bitcoin. Finally, Joe secures his hard deck. He recognizes that even a perfect Boglehead portfolio is a contractual claim. He acquires 0.1 Bitcoin and moves it into cold storage, holding his own private keys. As our audit of sovereign wealth showed, this 0.1 represents a fixed percentage of the global ledger that is immune to fiscal drag, bank nervousness, and the Rufada digital purges. It is the only asset Joe truly owns via direct private ownership. The sign-off. $300,000 in 2026 is a mirror that reflects your fears or your freedom. If you treat it like a win, the system will quietly erase it through 3% annual devaluation and OBBBA phase-out traps. But if you treat it as the hard floor of your new life, you can use it to build a bridge that the algorithm cannot cross. Don't be the stickman who thinks he has made it, while the invisible erasers are working on his balance sheet. Build your bridge, secure your anchor, and reach for true sovereignty. If this forensic audit of the middle class milestone changed how you view your net worth, hit that subscribe button. We are dissecting the hidden equations of the 2026 economy every week to help you stop being the product and start being the owner. I'm Joe from fin.stickman, and I will see you in the next one.